lounging, son.
Welcome back to the Comic Lounge. My name is Ryan, and back with me again, I got Dr. Ben Anthony with me. We're going to talk From Hell by Alan Moore Eddie Campbell. We had discussed doing this before the last book we did, but we ended up doing Prophet first. This was my first time reading it. Maybe, like I said, you can start off, tell everybody listening and watching a little bit about the book if they don't already know.
From Hell, I think it started in like 1988 or 89 in Steve Bissett's Taboo magazine.
Yeah.
And it was Alan Moore. I've been reading like so much stuff about this stuff anyway, so it's all just everywhere in there.
Mm-hmm.
But he had said, initially he wanted to cover a murder and make that like his next comic. And 1988 was the 100-year anniversary of the Jack the Ripper killings.
Mm-hmm.
And he said, he said at first, like he thought like everything had already been like covered with it. But then once he started looking at it, he was like, wow, there's so much stuff in this story. Like one of the things that like I love is that like that first part when the book starts, when it has like Detective Aberline and Edward Lee's like the psychic.
Mm-hmm.
The psychic's telling me, he's like, all that stuff that I said, there was the psychic that like he was like the personal psychic to Queen Victoria. But in the story, he has these, he says he has these visions about the killings, right? Like that's like what spoilers, that's the end of it. He's like oh, there's a doctor, I see blood, I see a bloody doctor, and like he leads them to Dr. Gull's house.
Mm-hmm.
And that's when like it all kind of comes together. But like at the beginning, because the beginning of the book starts out where they're old men, like years and years after everything.
Right.
He's like, all the visions I had, all that stuff, he's like, I just made it up, but it all was true, it all came true anyways.
Yeah.
And like Alan Moore was saying the same thing. He's like, all the different aspects of this royal conspiracy theory. He's like, all the different parts that I was looking at and like different like threads of stories and conspiracy ideas. He's like doing all his research for it. The same thing, like all these little strands would come together and like little parts that he just sort of like was, kind of like making like fantastical or whatever would end up like coming out like while he was like doing the research.
Yeah.
And that's, like I love that it starts out and it's it almost like it does spoilers on itself at the beginning. Like that's the first thing. It's like it tells you like what's going to happen basically. And I mean, everyone knows it's never been solved. The case has never been solved. And it's like doing my own research for it. I'm working on this mini comic for a Jack the Ripper conference in Northampton.
Mm-hmm.
It's there's just so many little details that all coalesce around each other. All the different even stuff with the royal conspiracy. There was
that was the most interesting aspect to me about, because I haven't watched the movie either, because I always knew that it was based on a comic, and I'm like, I'm not gonna watch this movie until I read the source material, because it's just I hate going backwards, and doing the reverse. But and Alan Moore, he's always been hard for me to like super analyze his stuff, because a lot of it is just so nuanced in the way he fucking crafts his stuff. I mean, looking at his scripts to his artists, sometimes it's like it'll be fucking 5 pages for 1 page of comic.
Oh yeah. Yeah, no, that's have you looked at the From Hell companion they put out?
No, I haven't seen that.
I'll show you. It's basically by Eddie Campbell, right?
Okay.
And he goes over not like every page of the script, obviously, because it's only like that big. So I mean, it's maybe like like it has to be maybe like 1/10 of the scripts that he got,
Yeah.
But he'll have like a couple pages of script from like different chapters, and that's exactly it. He'll have like 2 paragraphs of description of like this just insane detail, and it's like just one panel.
It's nuts, dude. His writing is fucking, it's insanity. I mean, it's like the work of a madman sometimes when you look at those. Like I saw, who was it? Don Simpson sent me the script for the in Pictopia.
Oh,
and it
really?
but it's like off of a typewriter, and it looks like the work of a serial killer, because it's like all offset. It's not completely even, and it just looks crazy, and I'm not saying Alan Moore is crazy. I don't think that, but he's unlike, I think, most 9 out of 10 writers in comic books. No, they're not doing that, and I think that every time I read his work too, it's never a quick read. I can never, not that I'm saying I'm trying to rush through comics when I read it, but like, that's why I had to plan this out far in advance with you. I'm like, I know, I flipped through it. I'm like, this is going to take me a while to read. It's not going to be one of those things I read in 2 days.
Yeah, it's like, well, I still have like, I've got like Lost Girls by him, and
I've never read that.
I haven't read it because it's like, it's the same size as like From Hell, like just this giant thick book. And it's like, I know that like in order to read it, it's like you got to make space in your brain, because it's like to try and process all of it is just a whole nother world. It's the other aspect I liked about his scripts that from the companion book was that he'd have this huge long description for a page, but then he'd be like, or whatever you think works best. Like he wasn't like dogmatic, like you have to make sure, like there's, my favorite one is like he has this description, chapter 3, maybe, what, I'll show you that, because it's like, okay, so that's what, like, he gives this example of okay, so it's like he's talking about like this panel, these panels right in here, right? These, was that the 5th, 6th, and 7th panels, and he's like, it says these are the panels as they appeared in the printed book, followed by Alan's script for reference. Mary Kelly is making way across town towards Whitechapel, and the script says Marino continues down Commercial Street towards Spitalfields Market, down at the end of Brushfield Street, nearest to Christ Church. The church itself probably isn't visible here. In the foreground, we see the bizarre, dirty, sprawling pocket world that is the marketplace. Everything conceivable is for sale or display. In the foreground, a man leads a skinny albino male through the street, a rope around the poor creature's neck. The albino's hair is long and straggly, his pale brows turned upwards in abject misery as he's led through the filthy and clamorous streets. Somewhere nearby, a boy holds up a fistful of yellowing haddock, calling out to the passing crowds. Elsewhere, a fat woman with a strawberry mark parades her tray of whelks. In the background, Marie walks nonchalantly towards this press of bodies and vitality, thinking more about the cold sperm trickling down her legs than the various wares upon display. And that's like just this one panel, right?
It's crazy.
Like, you know what I'm saying? Like, how could you even like begin to like put all that stuff into one panel? And like,
and that's what's crazy too about his work, is like there's so much of the work that Alan Moore puts into the books that most of us will never see.
Like some of the ways they've described it is that like it's almost like he like has a vision, or like, you know what I mean? Like it's like he closes his eyes and like
he
sees whatever that scene is.
Yeah.
And so it's like picking out all these details just to get like, just to try and capture that like with words. And then it's just insane. Like,
because he's like fleshing out, it's like he's writing a novel.
Right.
You know, it's that, I mean, that's basically what he's doing. He's painting the scene for the artist to then interpret it, you know, like as opposed to painting the scene for us as a reader to imagine it in our head, you know. But that's I mean, like even as you were reading it, like I didn't flip my book open, but I mean I can kind of see the panels, you know, from here. But still, like it's like I don't even see all that, even if I look at the book. It's like this is all some extra shit that he's like just saying, you know.
Right. He's just trying to get the artists like so they can like join him and like being able to see that. And yeah, it's fantastic. I mean, that's, you know, like with the art, like I know how you were saying, like it's got that like that scratchy style.
I love it though. I love
this
style, dude. It's totally, it fits for a story set in this period because it looks like something you'd see like if you, I mean, I don't know where I've seen it, but like old
that's what I was gonna say, because this is like I've printed out these like old police news from the time.
Dope. Yeah, and it looks
and
like that.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying, is it looks exactly like just one of these, you know, like illustrated police news from 100 years ago.
Dude, that's awesome. Where did you find that?
I just found them, like they're just on the internet.
That's pretty dope. That's pretty dope. I've never
seen I love them there. And it's the other thing that I found, right, is like this at the time there was like 2 other murders before the first one that's considered like Jack the Ripper's crimes or whatever, with Marianne Nichols or Polly Nichols.
Yeah,
there was 2 other murders in Whitechapel before them, and like they were in these like illustrated news, they were calling her like the 3rd victim, right? It was like there was these murders already occurring. It was like Martha Tabram, and I can't remember the other lady's name. And, you know, I think Martha Tabram was stabbed like 39 times to death or something. And, you know, she was found dead. And then the other lady was, I got the impression that she was like violated, and so violently that she died from the, you know, like she survived to the hospital, but then like died afterwards.
Right.
But it was like she never was able to say who attacked her or whatever. And so like at the time they were like, oh my gosh, you know, someone's killing women. Here's the 3rd one, Marianne Nichols. And then, you know, like, because this has like, which one is this? This is, I think that's supposed to be that's supposed to be Mary Kelly.
Okay.
But it's calling her like the 7th victim, picked out for slaughter by the East End fiend, you know. And you know, that this is what I love about it, is just, you know, like the public, you know, the reaction in public to all these different things. You know, that's what I cover like in my my thing that I'm working on, is just how news like affects so much of the perception, or, you know, or if you have like fake news, because, you know, I think they said there was like 30 or 40 daily newspapers at the time in London.
That's nuts.
Well, I mean, you think about it, the newspaper would have been, you know, their version of the internet.
That's
or
true. Internet. There's also no TV, so that's
no TV, no radio.
Yeah.
Like,
yeah, so I guess that makes sense.
That was it. You want to find out what's going on, any information, and they had just the intercontinental telegram, like the wires or whatever, that was just sort of like a recent thing. So they were constantly getting news from America, and like, you know, like from everywhere across the world or whatever. So it was like, that was like a whole new experience for people to learn, you know, this is what's going on. This is what's happened over in New York City across the pond yesterday. You know, so that was like a whole new experience for people, just to rather than having to wait weeks or months or whatever to learn about something that happened however long ago. You know, it's like it made everything more immediate. You know, I just think it's so fascinating, because then you have the people that are just telling regular stories, but then you have the people that are like trying to spice up their stories and say, oh, well, we heard it was a Polish barber. It maybe was a Jew, you know, like they have all these, that's where all this this sort of like tabloid, like fake news kind of thing starts to come in, and really become pronounced when, at the time, where how would anyone like fact check something at that?
Yeah, I think that's what's fascinating to me too about this book, because I mean, I don't read anything set in this time period usually, or if it is something in the 1800s, it's usually like a Western. That's usually what I'm seeing. I'm not seeing Victorian London, and just seeing because he does more. It's more than just the story of the murders. Like, he really fleshes out the entire like lifestyle of these people in this period. And I before I forget too, I really love the lettering on the book. It made it so that I couldn't read fast.
Right.
But that doesn't mean I don't like it, because it's like, there's a couple times I'm like, I had to like kind of really like stare at it. I'm like, to make sure I'm like reading it, and like I was reading it late at night and my eyes started getting heavy. I'm like, okay, I got to put this down. There's no way I can continue on.
Right. It's like nightmare fuel.
Yeah. But I really like, because I had a passing knowledge of the Jack the Ripper. I mean, I know of Jack the Ripper and the killings, but I didn't really know the nuance of what really took place. And I think that it is like, there's such grisly murders, like ripping out organs and shit. And it's like, to imagine that, and like the fear people would have, because like, how do you find somebody? It's not like today where like we have so much technology to where we could figure it out. There's cameras everywhere, like stuff like that. It's like that you're walking down a street at night, like well, I mean, there were prostitutes, but like the fear they must have had, like, and really really like, it heightens the tension of the story as you're reading it, because I mean, we kind of know like, well, who Alan is making as the killer, even though it's never been solved. And the whole royal conspiracy, I thought was like, you brought that up when we first started recording, and that part of it, I really I'm like, damn, dude, this is some crazy shit. Like, she's a cold bitch. The queen is a cold bitch.
Yeah, I mean, that's the thing that like, I think that's where, when you have like false narratives or fake news or whatever you want to call it, is it's like there's enough of like the facts and the truth, so that when they add in an element that's not proven, or it's just a theory, it's enough that it's like, yeah, I could see that happening. And I mean, like, you look at governments and like kings and queens and presidents and stuff from the beginning of time, it's like, yeah, I can see those people like just sending out a murderer to kill someone because it might inconvenience their lifestyle or whatever. And it's like, yeah, it's just bonkers. Like,
I mean, if you would have told me that this book was 100% fact, I probably wouldn't argue it.
Right.
You know what I mean? Like, that's why I think it's such a great book. And I can see why. I mean, I didn't not read it because I didn't want to read it for years. There's certain books where I'm like, yeah, I'll get to it eventually. And this was one of those books, but it's so easy to see why it's so well regarded, because it is done in such a way that to write a story based on true events, but to make it feel like it's all fact, like that's not an easy task, and like, I really, like I said, part of me believes like, well, this could be exactly what happened, even though I'm sure that there's a lot of liberties taken, but
well, and Alan Moore, he even says that like, there's at some point where he says that he thinks the theory's just rubbish anyways. He's like, I don't believe it. It's just a fantasy, and it's like, I mean, I got this to the Final Solution by Stephen Knight, this is where the royal conspiracy theory came from, right? Where he was the one that he talked to the guy that said he was the son of the painter. What's the painter's name? I always find out my brain like goes blank when I try to remember stuff, But there was the painter at the time that he was, after the murders, he was making paintings. Like, he had one of like he had a painting of Mary Kelly that he called it like Mrs. Barrett or blackmail, right? Mrs. Barrett, like Mary Kelly was, her boyfriend was named Joe Barrett, or was it Bennett? Either way, it was Barrett or Bennett, you know.
Yeah.
And he like, then there was he had another painting that was like, it was called Jack the Ripper's bedroom, and like, you know, like, and that's the other thing. Like my favorite chapter in this has got to be the end, that the dance of the gull catchers, where, you know, it's Alan Moore talking about creating the book and like doing all the research and then looking at, because that's the thing too, is there's so many books about the murders. I mean, there's I would not be surprised if there's like over 100 different like books on theories about,
Oh,
it was
sure.
Dr. Gull, or it was the Prince, or it was George Chapman, you know, it was this guy, it was that guy, you know, like, and they're still coming out, you know what I mean? Like,
yeah, because it's
still
such a,
like,
I think because these type of stories are so fascinating because there's no solution. You know, there was no conclusion like, oh, this is who did it, you know, and like,
right.
It is, I mean, one of the most famous serial killers in all history, you know.
Right.
You say Jack the Ripper, I think 9 out of 10 people would know that name.
Yeah.
They may not know all the details, but they know the name.
Yeah, it's like that just idea and that story is just like worked into like our you know, like our group subconscious or something. Like,
Yeah.
That's what I'm saying. Like, I love that, like, he goes through this and Sickert, that was it. What's his first name? Walter Sickert. That's it. Walter Sickert, the painter. And, you know, it says that like after the crimes, you know, that was like one of the stories that he would be telling like his guests or clients or whatever. Like, well, I know the true identity of Jack the Ripper, and you know, he would go through and explain like the story and like the different theories that he had, and then like other people would hear that, and then they would go off on their own tangents related to that, or like they would try to come up with their own solution, and it just continued and continued. And then there's somewhere, yeah, it says this Mrs. Bellick Lowndes, who had heard the yarn, was evidently so impressed she based her tale, The Lodger, on it, published in 1911, the first Ripper fiction. And you know, that's what I mean, like this, where these false narratives come and where they cross over with fact, you know, like, because people will, you know, that's the thing too, is like people that maybe just saw like the From Hell movie, or people that just kind of gave it like kind of like a cursory read through the comic, are like, are easily swayed to just think, well, that's the solution. It was the queen and she sent out her doctor to kill all these people, you know.
Yeah, because your head, you'll start mixing up, like, you know, fact with fiction, and where sometimes you won't even realize that you're like, oh yeah, that's what happened. You know, if somebody's like, oh, do you know about Jack? Oh yeah, sure, it was this person that did it. But really, it's like you got that from a movie, or you got that from a comic, or you got it from a novel, or whatever. You read it on the internet, and it's like all these different, not facts, but all these different pieces of information meld around inside your head, and then to the point where like you don't even know, like, okay, well, where did I read that? Is that true? Is it not?
Right. That's what I mean, like, about this last part, because he says, you know, that you know, all the people researching this, you know, some people think they've bagged it, but the net upon examination turns out empty. They all get in each other's way, sometimes deliberately trip each other up. This sport should be outlawed like bare knuckle fighting. People are hurt, reputations slaughtered. That's the other, like, with this Stephen Knight, who had written this Final Solution book. You know, like, he's just savaged. You know, people like go over him and just, they go through every detail, and they'll have just pick apart every single part of like someone's theory, and just, this person is not a real researcher. He's a fake news promulgator, you know, like, and it's like over and over. Like Patricia Cornwell, right? She's like a crime writer. I think she might have been like a DA or a detective at some point too, or maybe she's just a writer. But like her theory has all been about Walter Sickert, and she spent like millions of dollars trying to prove that it's him, like getting like DNA analysis of his paintings, and she's just fully devoted to proving that she's found the solution. It's Walter Sickert. He was the killer. And like the same thing, you know, people like just savage her theory. Just,
I mean, I think that's cool too.
Wrong because this.
everybody has their theories, and like spending millions of dollars for like what, you know, like
right
to you just want to be the one to prove that you're right. I think, I mean, it really stokes up this like passion amongst certain people, you know, the whole Jack the Ripper story.
And there's so many people have like latched onto it and like thrown in, you know, like the part with you know, Aleister Crowley, right? Like Aleister Crowley at some point claimed that he had like these ties, that he said that it was ties that were used, or no, he said he was getting letters from the child of the shop girl that worked with Annie Crook or something or other, who was supposed to be the mother of the illegitimate royal baby. Or well, it would have been a legitimate royal baby because it was supposed to be that they had been married. Mm-hmm. But he was, you know what I mean? Like just so many like people have like latched onto the story and all added in their own take or their own little fact.
Right.
And I mean, like the From Hell book doesn't even cover like half of them. You know, like that's what I'm saying. Like doing the research, looking at all these other books about it. You know, there's one where it was this lady that excuse me. They said that she had the knife that Jack the Ripper used, and it had been in her family, and you know they just had it forever, and they used it for digging in the garden. I'm like,
I feel like that'd be something I wouldn't want to have in my possession. I'd feel like that would have like some shit attached to it, you know, like the spirits of the fucking girls that were murdered or something.
Oh yeah, no, it's exactly like, or like the have you ever heard of, there's like the diary of Jack the Ripper, right? Mm-hmm. Where it was like, it came out, I think it was like 1992, because that was when I had first heard of it, and it was I had read it then, like, because I was a kid, and you know, I remember reading about From Hell, and I tried to order it from my local comic shop, but you know, I was like 13, and they're like, no.
No, that's probably what my shop would do too.
And so like that led me, you know, I went to the library and found like the books they had about it, and like this diary of Jack the Ripper had just come out, and I was like, oh my gosh. And it was like, it had the actual, you know, the actual crime scene photos and like morgue photos and stuff. And it was just, you know, I was just blown away, like just holy shit, because you know, with Mary Kelly, you know, when he finally kills her, I mean,
I love those pages right here. These pages.
Oh yeah,
those pages
they're fucking, you know what I mean? Like I would have been better to have had just From Hell rather than be able to get like the actual like crime scene, because I mean they are just brutal. Like you look at them and it's like, it has that picture of her on the bed where you see her skull because like her face has been taken off. Like you see like her thigh bone because he took the flesh off. Like I'm like looking at that as a kid, and I'm just like, holy shit. And so I think that built up the comic too, because I was like, well shit, if I'm allowed to see this, like, but I'm not allowed to see the comic, what on earth are they doing in the comic book that's worse than this? And it's like,
I also think it's definitely benefits that this is in black and white. I'm really glad that this wasn't done in color.
Yeah, I know, and I know he came out, Eddie Campbell colored it. You know, he did the colored version that just came out.
I know, I won't.
It was
I
like,
like the black and white, you know, like for
yeah,
me, I if it originally comes out in black and white, I'd rather just read it that way. So I mean, don't get me wrong, I'm sure that the color version is good as well, but I flipped through it and like the single issues that came out, and it just to me like it's not the same, you know,
yeah,
it's different. It's a different
yeah. Well,
experience.
'cause I mean, definitely, like, it's not like they were like debating on color or black and white at the time, or like they
Yeah,
didn't do color because of some, you know what I mean? Like, it was black and white because that was just, like I said, with those illustrated police news, that's the image like people have at the time. It's only been what the past like 20 years or whatever that they started like colorizing old films and old pictures and stuff.
yeah,
And it's like once you add in, like that, kind of like fantastical take on like you're putting color into something that was initially captured in black and white. It's like it's not going to have the same impact,
exactly.
because with this, this is what he was drawing, because it was like, okay, this is how I see the story. This is what Dr. Gall looks like. This is what this scene looks like. And, to like go back and then try to colorize it. I guess there's like color paintings and stuff from back then, but I don't think there's any color photos from the 1800s. I don't think they came up
No,
with color photography until who knows when.
yeah,
But
yeah,
just, that's my vision of like Victorian England is black and white, just these just scratchy looking images that they capture everything. And I mean, like you said, like I don't know that I'd want to see like this whole like,
yeah. I don't want to see that in color.
just
I don't care.
desecrating this poor woman's body
Yeah,
like in
yeah,
color, like black and white. I mean, that's, what I'm saying. You don't need anything more than seeing like her skull coming out of her face. To what more do you need to understand what's happening? Like that's horrific enough on its own. I
I
mean,
know, it's terrifying. And it's just so silent, and each panel, you
yeah,
know, it's paced so perfectly.
yeah, and that's, it's almost like the whole book is like leading up to this chapter where he finally kills Mary Kelly.
Yeah, and it feels so
And
ritualistic too, the way like it's like he's slowly taking off his jacket, puts it over on the chair, you know, it's like he's preparing like this grisly fucking task that he's set upon, you know, like
I mean, and that's the thing where it crosses over to that point where, like it might not be a fact that it was a Masonic ritual killing or whatever, or that I don't know if Masons do ritual killings for sure. I don't know, but there's enough, they call it like that suspension of disbelief. There's enough of that it's like, yeah, I could see that. Like you think about that Jeffrey Epstein, right? The guy that
yeah,
was,
yeah,
every everyone could believe that there was some sort of like sex trafficker predator that catered to like elite government officials and elite,
the wealthy,
you know
yeah,
what I mean? Everyone is able to like be like, yeah, I could believe that,
yeah,
and this plays into that same mentality where it's like, yeah, secret organization that who knows what Masons do at this point, but like 100 years ago, that was, if you were a Mason, that was like a big thing. There's always the stories about like, they have secret hand signs or secret handshakes or whatever, where, if you're accused of a crime, you go before the judge and he's a Mason, you do your little secret Mason gang sign, and he's like, not guilty. Like, that's already like in everyone's subconscious that, the people that are, like our rulers or whatever, the authorities, everyone has that sort of distrust where it's like, yeah, I could believe that. And then, you have like I said, at the time, there's 30, 40 newspapers in London, talking about this, and the cops, they at the time they were making fun of the police. Like that was one of the illustrated police news is they have like this picture of a cop and he's like blindfolded, kids are running around him, and they're like, police still can't catch the killer. Like people were like looking at it like, what is the problem? Why can't the police like stop this guy? He's just killing people and just right in the streets. And so it feeds into that, like, people want to have an explanation for these things. So the other thing I wanted to point out was with the Final Solution book, right? When he gets to the end of it, he all through it, because it is a little bit different than the From Hell story. Like it's basically the same, but in the Stephen Knight book, he says that he's talking to this guy that says he's Walter Sickert's son, right? He says that Walter Sickert married the royal baby, right? So supposedly it's supposed to be that Annie Crook and Prince Albert Victor had this child, and eventually somehow it ends up in Walter Sickert's care, and that's supposedly his mother and father, which would have been kind of a strange age difference, but maybe that was popular back then. I don't know. But Stephen Knight kind of confronts him, and he's like, there's no way you could have all this information about everything that happened. All the like with where they have like the double event. Right. Like, there's no way you could know this unless you were there. And Walter Sickert supposedly his son confesses, yeah, that I think it is that he was the other person helping to kill him. And that's one of the things that like Alan Moore like doesn't illustrate. He just has it as Dr. Gall and Netley, right?
Right.
And I found that fascinating because it's it's like when he's writing the story, he's not trying to tell this is what the solution is. He's just trying to show what was happening. Show us like what people on the streets back then would have been thinking, or what their lives would have been.
Right.
Like that the part where it has them, they're all sleeping at the they call it's not a hotel, but they called it like a 2-penny sit-up or something, where there was a bench and there was a rope in front of it, and that's where you'd sleep. You have to sleep sitting up, leaning against a rope. Like that was what people really were doing.
Yeah, that's horrible.
Plus the other thing was that there was lots of people that slept outside. They called it sleeping rough. And that's been one of the other there's this book that just came out called The Five, right, where it just goes through the lives of the victims, and the lady that writes it, Hallie Rubenhold, her contention is that none of them except for Mary Kelly were actual working prostitutes.
Okay.
Or well, I think Elizabeth Stride she had been listed as a prostitute when she was in Sweden, I believe, but that the other ones weren't out trying to get Johns or whatever, but that they were just they didn't have money to even sleep against a rope. They just had to sleep outside in an alley or wherever they could find a dry spot to stay. And so her contention is that that a number of them were just sleeping. They were just sleeping outside and got murdered by whoever the madman was. And it's funny in like that kind of like black humor way, because it's like she's like this controversial figure. I've been going through all these like Jack the Ripper forums, and the same thing. People just savage that lady. They're just like, she's a liar. She doesn't know what she's talking about. And it's like, whoa.
I mean, nobody really knows then what they're talking about. I mean, it's all theory. That's why it hasn't been solved.
Exactly. Like there's, there's not, there was there was another thing that had come out where this family said that they had a shawl from one of the victims that somehow, it was like one of their ancestors was a police constable at the time and had somehow gotten the shawl from, I can't remember which victim, and had kept it in his as a family heirloom. And I'm just like, what? Like, for like you said, like, why would you want to keep that? But I guess, I mean, there's people out there that do that, collecting like serial killer items.
Yeah. I don't understand it, but I mean, everybody's into what they're into, I guess. So
yeah, that shit's haunted. Like, I couldn't, even if you had it, I would just be like, this grandpa has the knife from Jack the Ripper. Give it to the cops or something.
Yeah,
give it to a museum.
Get it the fuck away from me. That's what I would be
keep
saying,
it out of the house. Yeah. That's what I'm saying. It just is amazing, and it's I think maybe part of just this ongoing, like, I'm just going to say an obsession with Jack the Ripper is just, that's like the first serial killer that introduced so many different things that we've seen copied, like the whole, think about it too, like all the letters and stuff that the police got, written confessions from all sorts of people that were proved to be just like some random dude that just decided to like start writing a letter to the police as Jack the Ripper that didn't have any connection with it, that just that's continued like up until today, you know what I mean? Like, and that with Jack the Ripper, that was like when that started, just this media obsession,
wanting to gain notoriety and stuff, just be in the spotlight, a little bit of ego behind it.
And that's, I think that falls into that same category of like keeping like serial killer items and everything. Like there's just something that I can't comprehend what the reason is, but we can't debate it, you know what I mean? Because that's, like I said, that's still the sort of thing that's still going on,
Yeah. I mean, I guess I understand it more if like the killer is saving it, but for somebody that is not attached to it, that's just like, oh man, they use that in the murder. Well, I'd like to put that up on my shelf and display it. That's right. That's like a little weird,
Right. Or what with like Charles Manson, right? Like he just died a few years ago,
right?
And he had gotten married to some girl that was, obviously like years. She was like in her 20s or something. I don't think they ended up doing it, but her plan had been to, like, after he died, take control of his body, have it preserved, and then like take it on a tour around America. And I'm just like, what?
I never heard that. That's a sick bitch.
So I'm saying, who on earth would even come up with such an idea? Like, I'm gonna take Charlie Manson's body and take it around to show it off. Like,
yeah, I'm gonna get it stuffed and sleep next to it every night. Yeah, it's weird. It's I don't know how somebody even comes up with something like that. But I think that's the thing, is that this story and other stories about serial killers, I think that's why it's so fascinating, and people find it so fascinating, is that you don't necessarily want to go out and murder somebody, but just trying to put yourself in that headspace of these people that do it in such a way, or that continue to do it, right? Like, what you kind of like why, like you want to know why, like what drives somebody
exactly, like,
and that's kind of what's interesting.
Yeah, because exactly like what you're saying, like, like the idea of like going out and killing somebody is like repulsive, like I've got like a weak stomach, you know what I mean? Like I can watch horror movies, I can watch Texas Chainsaw movies all day long, read bloody this horrible comic books because it's not real, you know. But like,
Right.
you know, like we were talking, you know, I used to work at restaurants, right, too.
Yeah.
And I'd see somebody like, you know, cut their finger, not even like bad, you know, like if somebody nicks their finger or whatever, I'm like, I'm turning white. I'm getting sick. I'm like, oh, I'm gonna go in the back for a minute. Like, I can't see this. Like, so the idea of like someone purposely going out and, you know, I mean, all these crimes, like taking out someone's uterus.
Yeah, dude,
Like,
that's
whoa,
yeah, it's nuts. And
Lord,
it's like, and while they're doing it, it's like they
how
don't
could
think
you
they're
want to
doing
do
anything
that?
wrong either,
Yeah,
necessarily. You know,
right,
maybe
right,
sometimes they do know, but there are those killers that just like they don't think what they're doing is wrong. And that
right.
in itself is fucking insane.
Yeah, I think. See, I think maybe that's the point of research and all this stuff, is trying
Right.
to figure out like what is it that makes Bob want to go out and like eat somebody's tonsils, and you know the next person is, you know, every normal person doesn't want to eat brains, you know,
Yeah.
but what is it that makes someone,
The motives, yeah.
right? There's got to be some sort of chemical imbalance. There's got to be some sort of, there has to be an explanation what makes someone do these, or like do this kind of shit. Because I mean, it's still, you know, obviously we still have killers. There's still like serial killers that are active now. What is there something that we can do to help prevent that, you know?
Yeah.
And that's one of the things I think is fascinating too, is like, you know, in the 70s and 80s, there was the Yorkshire Ripper over in England, right?
Mm-hmm.
And it was, you know, he didn't have the same like methods or anything with killing his victims, but he killed 13 different women. It might have even been more. All the same things that happened with this, you know, people writing into the papers, it's me, you know, like, and they latched on immediately to the Ripper name. People were writing in, I'm Jack the Ripper, I'm back from 100 years gone, you know. And like nothing had really improved with police detection, you know, because they were, at first they wrote off the victims and said, oh, he's just preying on prostitutes, so don't worry about it. If you're not a prostitute, you don't have to worry. And like people like took that as gospel. And then eventually he killed like a 15-year-old girl, and you know the papers put it at the time like, well, he's taken his first innocent victim. And it's like, innocent, like, if you're a victim, you get murdered, like you're innocent, you know what I mean? Like,
Yeah, but
like,
what, I mean, how do you differentiate that? I think, I mean, nobody
right,
deserves
like,
to be murdered, so
that's what I'm saying. Like, to write off, you know, like with this, you know, people, anytime you look it up, people refer to it as, well, he just killed prostitutes. And it's kind of like that puts like a little bit of space between it, where, you know, you can say, well, you know, I'm not a prostitute, so I don't have to worry about that sort of thing. Or it gets into that like blaming the victim, you know, where they have you know, sexual assault cases, you know, like, and they're blaming the victim, saying, well, you know, she was wearing a mini skirt and she was at the club and she was drunk, so she kind of brought it on herself. And it's like, that's not any sort of excuse. You know, no one wants to be murdered. Well, I mean, maybe somebody, but I don't know. But just seeing that, you know, the same mentality where, you know, people blame, you know, or they kind of almost excuse it, saying, well, you know, they had the wrong lifestyle, they had the wrong morals. And it's like it puts that distance for people where they can, I don't know, just sort of think that they're not in the same category or something, you know, like,
yeah.
yeah.
I think that I mean, I think, see, like, that's why this type of book can you could just talk endless about it because there's so many
Yeah.
different avenues and it sparks up so many different conversations about it. Like, you know what I mean? Like it could take you so many different places. And I think
Right.
that's why this book that's why this book is so great. You know, like I mean, it's not, I like it a lot. It's not my favorite Alan Moore thing, you know,
Right.
but I do really dig it. And I think that it is such a well-crafted comic book. And,
What's your, just out of question, what's your favorite Alan Moore book?
Swamp Thing is my favorite, but
Right.
I love Swamp Thing. So
Cool.
that's why, I mean, Watchmen is great, you know,
Right.
for me. I mean, well, I guess Swamp Thing and Promethea probably is tied for me because I read Promethea not that long ago and I thought that was really good.
Okay.
But I mean, that's just, I've always just, Swamp Thing was my first Alan Moore book that I read, so that's probably why it's my favorite.
Yeah, that would do it.
Steve Bissette, his art, John Tolman, all that stuff is so good. But I would say people might lash out at me for this, but I do like From Hell a little bit better than Watchmen even. But it's just because I like the context with which this story takes place, and I've always been a huge fan of stuff that is based on true events, you know, like that to me I've always latched onto that stuff, and it's always fascinated me getting to take a look back into stuff that really took place, you know. And I think that the way he writes this, it's not written necessarily with like, you know, old English, so it wasn't like he uses slang words or phrases, but it's not written in a way that felt super dry, which it could have gone that way, you know, setting a story in this.
Right.
Also, League of Extraordinary Gentlemen, I like that one too. I don't know, I like a lot. You know, that one's always been the first actual story was like my favorite of those. But
Right on.
I don't know, it's hard for me to pick a favorite Alan Moore because it's like there's no bad Alan Moore comic that I you know, so
maybe Bad Rock.
Bad Rock. Yeah, I don't know. I haven't read that one. That's, you know.
Yeah, I honestly, like, From Hell has always been my favorite work of his. Like, it's like I said, like first hearing about it when I was 13, which,
well, yeah, you have a whole history, there's a whole story behind it for you of like trying to get it. So it's like that in and of itself is cool, you know, and it kind of heightened your like, you know,
I'll give you just to keep it like kayfabe for a minute. Like this is where I'd first heard of it. Wizard 23.
I mean, that's where I probably first heard of a lot of creators, you know. I'm not gonna sit here and bullshit. I read a lot of Wizard when I was a kid, so
yeah, all of this stuff is like those like core memories, you know, like the idea of like Tundra being around and then Tundra being bought by Kitchen Sink or going out of business or however exactly it happened, you know, all of that stuff is like my core memories, you know, like that's like my initial history that I think of as like, well, then there was Kitchen Sink. First there was Tundra, and then it turned into Kitchen Sink, and then this, and then you know what I mean? Like all of this stuff is like just what, you know, I think of comics, I think of just you know, someone else might have like Fantastic Four or something, if that was what they came up with. Like this is what I came up with was Exo Man of War Zero coming out, and also that From Hell is out there somewhere, but I can't get it, you know, like
yeah.
And it doesn't, you know, this is July of '93, and it's talking about, it says Eddie Campbell also lends his pen to From Hell Volume 2, the second collection of the graphic novel written by Alan Moore and serialized in Taboo. 64-page black and white book reprints the third and fourth chapters of the story. Moore has carefully researched a theoretical solution to the Jack the Ripper murders in Victorian England. So even there, like it doesn't present it like this is the solution. It's just that he's researched a theoretical solution. You know, it doesn't say this is he's found the answer. You know, like which if you look at any of the books about Jack the Ripper, you know, it'll be I've found the solution. Jack the Ripper has been identified. It was my uncle. You know, that's how like so many of these books approach it, and that's not what he was doing. You know, he was just like illustrating time and using, you know, it calls it, you know, a theoretical solution. It's not that he's saying, you know, it just says that he's painstakingly researched all aspects of Victorian culture, from the architecture to the weather patterns, you know, and all of that stuff is available. You know, it has, you can go back and look at the archives of the newspaper histories, and it would have, you know, whatever the weather was in England that day. And I mean, like the idea of like going back and like finding all that little bits of information, putting it in the story, writing the script, giving to Eddie Campbell, it's just insane, you know. Like, I mean, like just like my mini comic thing I'm working on is going to be like maybe 10 pages, you know. And it's like
throw some of those pages, throw a page or two out. Let's see it.
I'll show you. This is I've got to finish this one. This is like the first page. I still got to cross hatch these guys all in there. But I'm you know, I start off immediately. I'm like, look, I'm not going to go over and retell the story. I'm not going to go over the basic facts. I just want to talk about a lot of kind of like what we've talked about with like fake news and false narratives.
Right.
I think that came out well. It's good.
Dude, that came out really good. Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, I'm looking at the cover right next to it as I was like looking at yours. Yeah, you did a great job.
And then I had to do like my little like Love and Rockets homage. Like
I'm a fan of that panel.
Yeah. Love and Rockets is just, and the fact that like Alan Moore's been into Love and Rockets since it was started. You know, like he's always been like a huge proponent of it.
Yeah, I mean, he did that when they did that color. Well, I think he did an intro in one of the trade paperbacks, but I have those color versions of Mechanics that he wrote the intro for.
I think the crossover between Alan Moore and the brothers there is, you know, they're both like taking looking at the human experience and just breaking it down to like, what does it mean? Like, what does it really mean to be alive and to be a human? Whether it's, you know, your life is fine, you know, facing murderers, or whether your life is just about being in a punk band or being you know, a female wrestler, or whatever the case might be. You know, what are the things that like that draw us all together, that we all have in common, that we can all relate to? Finding those and like putting those moments in, because like, you know, I just read I think it was like issue 26 or something. I posted it the other day because it was like I read this issue of Love and Rockets I hadn't read yet.
I love that cover too.
And it blew me away, because it was Luba. There was a child killer was on the loose, and like Luba was like, she couldn't find her daughter, and she was worried that she had been killed. And yeah, I mean, you know, like you have kids too, you know, like as a father or as a parent, you know, that like, yeah, the idea of something happening to your kid, like even just skinning their knee, you know, and plus I get with the weak stomach, you know, like skinning their knee is like just even more intense. Like, but you can't avoid. You gotta like, you have to be there. You can't just be like, oh, your tooth got knocked out, or you got a bloody nose. I'll see you later. You know, like as a parent, you got to face all that stuff,
right?
And then it's like, holy shit, you know, there's this huge evil world out there where these horrible things still happen. It's just like terrifying, you know. And it was like all of that was in that Love and Rockets. Like it was just these few panels, and it like just brought all that into my mind, and it was just like, holy shit.
Yeah, I think that, you know, yeah, I mean, the like Love and Rockets, Gilbert and Jaime, what they do, man, it's like, yes, there's a lot of humor to what they do, but when they hit those serious stories and those serious pages, those panels, it's it's heavy. Yeah, I mean, it really is. It's some great stuff. I just, at the shop I work at, there's like a huge, not a huge collection, but there's a collection of stuff that came in, and there's like a stack of like 26 issues of Love and Rockets from the first volume, and I'm like, I put that aside for myself, and I was just flipping through something because I've read most of it. I have the collections and stuff, but it's not the same. Like I want those single issues.
Yeah, that's definitely with From Hell. That's something I'm intent on getting at some point. Is I think I just need to like message Steve Bissette because I think he still has issues of Taboo available.
That's a good idea, dude. I kind of want to message him too.
That's what I'm saying. I want, and especially Taboo has like so many other things in it.
Oh yeah, dude. There's so many great creators in there, man. I think John Byrne was in an issue, and then there was Phil Hester. I saw Phil Hester in one of them, and I interviewed him a while back, and I'm like, dude, I had no idea you even were in that book.
That's what I'm saying. It's just everything is in there, and they're all, which blows my mind that he still has copies of it. I'm like, what is wrong with the comics reading public that like all these aren't gone yet? Like, yeah, because I don't think he's selling them like at a huge marked up price or anything.
No, but I didn't think to ask him either. I did get Tyrant from him, but I never thought to ask about Taboo.
Oh yeah, Tyrant. That is like my dream, is that he is gonna, like, now that he's retired, is that he's gonna like do more Tyrant.
I love that book. That book is so awesome.
I mean, yeah, it's just I've never had the 4th issue, so I just have 1 through 3.
Okay.
And I think it's funny because I think that was like, I remember not being able to get From Hell, but then like reading that the Tyrant was coming out. I remember like I ordered that like as a kid. I was like, oh my gosh, Steve Bissette. Like I had never even gotten to have like any of his issues of Swamp Thing as a kid. But like I always knew that like that was just like the pinnacle, like you want to get like just the best comics. You're going to look up some Alan Moore and you're going to look up some Steve Bissette. Yeah. And then find out he's doing a comic about a Tyrannosaurus Rex from like being in the egg to hatching to grow. I'm like, holy shit, this is my jam. Like I'm going to get to be in it from the beginning and watch a dinosaur grow up. Holy shit, this is amazing,
Well, before we get too off topic, I mean, my final thoughts are that if you've been I just want to say that everybody listening to watch, if you've been on the fence like I have been for years and not picking this up, do yourself a favor and pick this fucking book up because it is phenomenal comics. Alan Moore and Eddie Campbell, it's mastercraft of the medium, and I can't recommend it enough.
That's the other thing. I mean, it is such a rabbit hole. Once if you just start with this and you get to the end and you're like, I need to see more. I need more of this. Like Eddie Campbell has his Bacchus comic, and there's parts where like William Gold, Dr. Gold shows up in the Bacchus comic, like because he has like kind of like autobiographical moments in there. And he was doing that like as From Hell was coming out, he was also doing Bacchus, and it's like you can see like how much like doing this, because I mean, what is this, like 500 pages or something
like that? Yeah,
you can see like how much this was just pervading his brain and just like seeping into like every aspect of his life. He's like just sitting at his drawing board, and it's like all this Jack the Ripper stuff would come in while he's like drawing, and like, so that's, I mean, it just, you get through reading it and you want to keep going. It's like there's so much more that you can dig up. And then the same thing with this From Hell companion. It's like this whole other aspect. You can look at it and like see just the amount of research and the amount of just care that went into it too. Like, yeah, researching all the different stories, or there's the parts in here where after he dies, there's that whole chapter where he's like a ghost or whatever, and it's like he shows all these different that's his trial with the Masons, but he goes through all these like urban legends in London about like a man that's seen, people like seeing ghosts in windows and seeing ghosts jumping off the bridge and all these different things, and he ties all that in. He turns William Gull into that ghost that becomes unhinged in time or whatever.
Oh yeah, and he goes into present day at one point too.
Right. Yeah, because he's showing like all the different, what do you call it, psychogeometry or something or other, like just the history that gets stuck into a location, all the different, just events that happen that have some sort of impact on, I mean, you kind of getting back to like that things being haunted event, like if you go to a place where, if you went to a restaurant that you knew that there was a murder took place there, like there's something about that place that you can't even describe, but there's some sort of just uncanny feeling you get, and he just bringing that all together and showing, maybe that's one of the things that we all have in common, is being able to feel like that, just that history of a place, not necessarily saying that ghosts are real or they're not real or whatever, but just that's something that all exists in all of our subconscious,
Right. Yeah.
It definitely has my whatever my highest recommendation can be for reading this is got it, Yeah.
All right.
Well, awesome. Like thanks for indulging my love of From Hell here. Definitely. Like
thanks for forcing me to finally pick it up.
Yeah.
I mean, if you didn't say it, I probably, who knows how much longer I would have gone without reading the book. So
right.
Yeah, I mean, I'm super stoked. I'm super stoked to check out your zine that you're making. And then once it's live, dude, I'll share it and help get the word out there. And I will drop, well, I mean, I've already dropped your links so where people can find you and find your comics that you put out. I'll put it down below as well. And if you're not already following me in the Comic Lounge, you can follow us on Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram at the Comic Lounge, and drop your comments, suggestions down below. Tell us what you thought of the book, if you've read it, what you thought of our analysis of the book. Hit that bell icon so you're notified every time a new video goes up. And on that note, we're out.